AITA for keeping people of opposing views in my news feed. Eye roll. I purposefully keep people of opposing political and ideological views on my friends list so I can call them out on their bigoted posts. AITA for spreading the feminist gospel to people who, from my perspective, are anti-women's rights and anti-LGBT.
My question is, do you actually think you're changing their mind?
I don't trust that this person who would abuse our submission form this way and give us no details and no specifics and no mission to represent these views. I'm concerned they're making it worse for everyone. Sydney Lehman writes, at first, NTA. But if you're doing this consistently to the same few people, then yes, YTA. You're not doing anything to help feminists or the LGBT plus community by harassing people who aren't going to change their minds.
Ultimately, unless they're open to listening, I mean, if they're preaching the gospel of something that is just you don't believe in, I don't see them. Listen, they could be open, but it's certainly not going to be on Facebook. Show me a comment that's changed someone's life.
After this post came out, I had a probably 20 comment back and forth with someone who said that feminists are bad. The thing about these people, people who come off as bigots, Sure. Nobody likes to hear feminists are bad. That certainly doesn't play well. I don't recommend you say it in polite conversation, certainly not in New York City. But what I realized the more I talked to this person is they just didn't know what feminism was.
A lot of people don't.
He literally said feminism is the idea that there's a group of men that get together and hold women back. And I was like the Bilderberg group for hating women? I don't think that's a thing. Nobody thinks that. So I do applaud Submitter if they are really going in there and trying to learn. That's the thing that no one wants to admit. You have to learn from the people who oppose you, because if you don't, you will never be able to address any of their qualms. And I always use this as an example. There was a guy a black guy who became friends with KKK people, and people are like, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? You know what he said? I listened. You can't just come at these people, because I think Sydney's 100% right. That's just going to be harassment. You're just going to piss them off. You're going to make them hate you more.
Is anybody open to listening in that?
We don't want to, right? Because we're like, oh, these people are evil.
Right.
They're the bad side. But that's the truth, that if we want to get people on board for trans people and feminism and universal healthcare and all these things, the first step is not to yell your message. No. It's to say, well, what do you think? And why do you think that?
You'd have to listen to sort of how they got to the conclusion they're at.
Exactly.
And then you can point out something like, I think the definition for feminists that you have is actually incorrect. Did you know it's this?
Yes.
Or a lot that, and then maybe that could help topple the tower, because it's happened.
Well, and you have to be realistic. You're not going to get someone who's like trans is a disease to trans people should have 100% rights and it's completely valid in one day.
No.
So try to make your goal to just move them over just a bit. And you have to do that. You have to put away your ego, put away your anger, and be 100%, 110% respectful.
Yes.
That I think is the only way to do this.
That's very difficult. I think it's so hard. I myself struggle with political debates where I don't get heated or upset. And it's like, how do I put that on hold to have a conversation with someone who I have to believe in order to have the conversation that they're a good person, that they don't mean to be saying something that's offending me or saying something that's, against a certain group of people. That can't be, they're not evil. They don't want to kill, I'm hoping, a bunch of people. And if they do, how did they get there? And how can I sort of point out the path maybe is incorrect? And am I willing to hear certain things? Yeah. And am I willing to make certain compromises or changes? Because I think ultimately, if you're not, you can't expect them to.
Exactly. No, it's not an easy job.
No.
If you are going to try to convince people online, people of opposing views online, it is a uphill battle.
And sometimes when you tell someone, why do you believe that? They might not even know.
Yep.
By asking them questions and asking them to fill in more information, they could realize something in themselves at that moment. I grew up in a household that was teaching certain things that I don't identify with now. I didn't know that back then. And what my parents said was the gospel truth. Eventually, once I regurgitated it enough and people would say why, or I'd ask myself why, like I had to sort of figure out, did I come up with this opinion? This is an opinion. And do I still agree with it? Or was I doing it out of fear and because my parents said that was correct?
I think that gives me a lot of empathy and understanding toward going into these people's heads and seeing like they're not evil, but these are really deeply held, really old beliefs. And the thing about beliefs is if you have a belief, you will see the evidence that supports the belief. And that's what you're up against.
Right.
So you really got to put away your anger and you have to be a massively better person.
Right.
Bigger person, more respectful person to affect any change. And it's hard. It's not for everyone. Mark Stoles writes, NTA, you're only the asshole if you surround yourself with yes people. And I agree with that. I think we have to know what the other side is saying, what other perspectives are in our society, because it's just plain arrogant to do anything else. And that's part of being connected, you know, and America right now isn't this like, it's like this versus that. And it's silly. It's silly because
so
we're all the
silly.
same team. We're trying to make a better country. And yet we turn to these vitriolic, hateful insults and things of that nature. So AITA for keeping people of opposing views in my newsfeed. I don't know if this person is harassing. I'm going to give them the Benny of the D. I'm going to assume they're not harassing and that they're trying to learn and understand and maybe persuade people. So I'm going to give them, I feel, a generous no assholes here.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that they can take that no asshole and sort of run with it and figure out what they can do to help and maybe make a bigger impact. So no one's an asshole
In the world.
Yeah.
Big goals.
Big goals.